Good morning and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN, the content capital. I'm Keaton Shaw. It is Monday, the 11th of April, 2022. It's a very short week, but it is going to be a busy week. There is a lot to discuss, and of course, you may have assumed correctly in suggesting that this morning Talking Point will be focusing mostly on the announcement by the Minister of Finance on Friday in relation to the increase in prices for transportation fuel. We will be joined by our guest very shortly to have a discussion of which we will start off today and we will continue into tomorrow's program. But alongside me this morning is my co-host, colleague and a good friend, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Keaton. And yes, it's always interesting what comes out on Friday. A lot of interesting news that tries to avoid the news cycle comes out on Friday. A certain celebrity that slapped a certain other celebrity announced some of his decisions on a Friday. Unfortunately, that didn't necessarily cover things. And with regards to this fuel increase, it doesn't necessarily help in the matter because it just allows the news cycle to have the entire weekend to stew until we reach on Monday.
Well, I myself thought the same thing, actually. I know that Parliament actually had a sitting on Friday, and though the Minister of Finance, as well as the Prime Minister, has been hinting at something, an action of this level for quite some time, announcing it on Friday really did take the bite of the news cycle. But that is why we have to have these discussions this morning. Just to remind you of the announcement, the prices of premium gasoline and super gasoline will be adjusted by $1 per litre at $6.75 and $5.97 per litre respectively, while the price of diesel will be adjusted by 50 cents per litre, increasing to $3.91 per litre. To have a discussion on this situation, to get their first reactions and the repercussions that it will have on the local economy here in Trinidad and Tobago, we are joined via Zoom this morning by the University of the West Indies financial economist Dr. Valmiki Arjun, as well as the president of the Shogunas Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Rishi Sukhai. Good morning, Dr. Arjun. Good morning, Mr. Sukhai. Welcome to the program and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having us as well. Good morning to all your viewers.
Good morning.
Morning.
Well, I'll start off. Good morning, Mr. Sukhai. I'll start off with you first, Dr. Arjun. We understand the need for the government to balance its budget. However, we were expecting this, it would seem, with the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance hinting at this for quite some time. However, considering the timing and considering their reasons, the Minister of Finance indicated it's the fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the international implications from the Russian-Ukrainian war. Is that enough of a justification for such an action to take place, especially at this time?
Hi, sorry, I was muted there. What we have to remember is that Trinidad and Tobago expends a lot of money on subsidies, transfers and subsidies every single fiscal year since the mid-2000s. But are these monies used productively or not? That really is the question. Now, with respect to the fuel subsidy, we have had this fuel subsidy for quite some time now, and the real thrust of the subsidy, when it was first implemented, is so that the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago would be able to enjoy from their own ownership of the oil resources, of the energy resources of the economy. Now, yes, we understand that the state has to expend more for the fuel subsidy and also to import refined fuel at a higher cost. Remember that we don't have a refinery any longer, so we have to import the refined fuel that we utilize at the gas station pumps on a daily basis. And the irony is that because oil prices are now higher, when we're shipping this fuel to Trinidad and Tobago, the cost of that transportation is also going to be higher as well. But on the flip side, remember that they're also getting more money from the exports of oil, from gas, from LNG, and also the gas derivatives like ammonia, methanol, etc. In fact, when we look at, we were aware of what the prices are at this point in time. In fact, when I last checked, just before this interview, gas prices were well over $6 per MMBTU. When you look at ammonia prices, they're the highest they've ever been. In fact, they surged to about 43% since Friday gone. They're about $1,625 per metric ton since last Friday. Now, these are very, very high prices. So it obviously means that the state is going to be earning high amounts of revenues from the energy sector, from the export revenues. You're looking at supplemental petroleum tax. You're looking at royalties. You're looking at increased corporation tax from the energy companies and the energy service companies. And the list goes on and on. So naturally, these increased revenues from the energy sector could be used to buffer the fuel subsidy, especially at this point in time when many small businesses, and not just small businesses, but many elements of the private sector and many households have not recovered from the effects of the pandemic. Remember, their profitabilities took a serious hit. Mm-hmm. Remember, their income streams took a serious hit. So their purchasing power is really not where it used to be. Imagine now your purchasing power has dwindled because your income levels have dropped. But in addition to that, prices are skyrocketing. The prices of food globally are the highest they've ever been. And now you have a situation where we have a increase then, or a reduction in the fuel subsidy, an increase in the cost of fuel, something that is an essential commodity for us on virtually a daily basis. So it's going to compound the cost of living and reduce their purchasing power even lower. What I just want to stick in there really quickly is that what is interesting is that when the oil price was below $50 per barrel, we were paying an excess at the pump for super and premium. And this was up until quite recently, just up until the middle of last year. Mm-hmm. So we were paying an excessive amount for super and premium when you compare it to the price of those types of gasoline in the international market. When you compare it to the international market clearing price, we were paying a higher amount for it, which means that the state was earning an additional amount of funds, of revenues from the country when we were buying the fuel at the pump. So this excess revenues, could it not be used now to help partially offset some of the subsidy? And then when you look at PARIA is the only entity that is allowed to import fuel.
Yes.
Why not open it up to other organizations in the country so that the fuel market, the prices at the pump could become more competitive because there are more providers, and this could lead to better cost savings among the business community and amongst households in general.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd like to now bring Mr. Richie Sukai of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce House of Shoguners, and as mentioned there by Dr. Arjun in relation to the private sector and how much diesel is important commodity to the private sector. This is the fourth increase in 7 years, and this increase comes at a very difficult time for businesses as they start to rebuild and restructure. Many businesses have closed down, and they're now in a position where they have to look to see what is the next opportunity or what is the next best possible situation that they can get into considering these economic times. Now, with that, we've had mixed reactions thus far from various chambers. One chamber head indicates that it is reasonable. Another chamber head has described it as absolutely wicked. Mr. Sukai, what is your opinion in relation to this, especially from the business standpoint?
Once again, good morning, and good morning, Trinant Tubig, and thank you again for having me on the program. I will tell you that, while we understand that government needs to wean away from the subsidy that we have been enjoying for years, and we understand the position that they are in, like Dr. Arjun is saying, the time now for them to remove the subsidy, whether or not is the correct time. Now, we'll always ask the question, when is the time correct? But however, we're just coming out of a pandemic. There's a war taking place in Ukraine and Russia. And that war, although it's many thousands of miles away, you have repercussion in many different sectors. For instance, the supply chain issue, where you have and we haven't seen the full fallout as yet, because if this war looks to continue even further, the supply chain issues, and especially agricultural products like fertilizers and other items that goes into the manufacturing of food and other basic necessities, those prices are going to increase. We have prices of eggs are going up. fertilizers and other commodities that are used within the agriculture arena goes up, obviously the price of everything in terms of commodities, in terms of staples that we produce locally, they are also going to skyrocket. So now you've compounded with the removal of, even though the minister clearly stated only $1, that is going to translate to additional fees that they're going to pay at the pump, and there's additional fees that everyone's going to pay. I'd like to also add to Dr. Arjun is, in terms of his statement, what he said about liberalization, and Paria being the only one that is able to import import the fuel. The quality sometimes that we are getting at the pumps are not of standard. I can tell you this, the quality of diesel, the quality of gasoline, I don't believe that it is, although they could have their testing, if you check independently, the quality of diesel that we are getting is of substandard. And I believe that, opening up the market to allow other importers to compete will provide even better quality fuel.
Well, gentlemen, one of the things, though, that this whole, I guess you could say, exercise, because the Minister of Finance, he justified the government's position about looking at the subsidy, the fears about the subsidy, etc. How much was spent on it or certain periods of the history in recent time, and the fears that the subsidy might increase. My main thing, actually, to me, is more with regards to, is the fuel subsidy necessarily the best way to spend the money? Maybe there's an argument to consider that the government would have better projects or ways to facilitate the economy and better ways to use those funds to help with the economic recovery. Maybe, I'm not entirely sure, because I guess it comes down to the fact that we do have to ask, if the government has a revenue shortfall and for whatever reason cannot meet its bills, is taking out the subsidy to try to prevent additional expenditure necessary? And if it's necessary, could it then be a bit more palatable?
Well, before Dr. Arjun starts, I just want to reiterate something that he said even before. What are they doing with the money? Are we getting value for money? And if they're saving, where the cost savings going? Because we have the property tax that is looming and supposed to be introduced soon. That is an additional cost to business owners and to the members of the public. So if we bear the brunt of all these initiatives that they're looking to cut costs and savings, where is the value coming for the people of Trinidad and Tobago? And Dr. Arjun alluded to it before, and I would like to ask the same question. Where's the money going? Dr. Arjun?
Yeah. Apart from Richie, you took the words right out of my mouth, this term value for money. And it's not just now, we can question this for successive governments over many decades. When we pay taxes, yes, there is a shortfall in terms of the taxes that are paid. There are many elements in society that are dodging taxes, but we're well aware of this. But there are also many, many more honest elements that are paying their fair share of taxes every month, every quarter, what have you. But are we getting value for that money? Now, you ask the question about whether or not there are areas that we could, better areas that we could spend this money. Remember, revenues are in fact going up. We're getting more money. Basically, what is happening, to be very frank and blunt, is that we are gaining from having done absolutely nothing in this particular respect. This is a war together with supply chain problems going across all over the world, especially from our major suppliers, like in China, etc. We have no say in what goes on there. So when prices are going up, we are price takers, so we are benefiting from it. That's what I mean by we've done absolutely nothing benefiting from this, simply because, also because we have not really made a concerted effort in recent years to ramp up our production then of oil and gas. Okay, oil and gas is the level of production that we would have enjoyed several years ago is not what we're enjoying right now. So we're really benefiting from a price perspective. Now, there are always better ways of spending money. You can always criticize and say, okay, well, if you spend $5 billion in capital expenditure this year, could we not have spent that money on a different avenue? Now, you raise a very valid point, and I'm inclined to agree somewhat with it that yes, there are more productive areas that we could spend this money, like capital expenditure projects, infrastructural development, and that is by far the most productive area in government expenditure. And we can utilize this money as well relative to previous years to make sure that there's no wastage of funds, there's better financial management going on in the picture, so there's far less corruption or no corruption at all, that there are no cost overruns and delays with respect to implementing and completing these infrastructure type expenditure that we see on an annual basis. Remember when we put on the budget, on the books, then monies for capital expenditure for infrastructure, and those projects take, instead of taking 2 years to complete, they take 5 years. It means that we're going to have to end up spending a lot more money for it. Those monies, again, could have been put to a better use. But the key thing to remember is that the government, they have, in my view, a two-pronged objective. They have to look at the economic welfare, economic and financial well-being of the country, and secondly, the social well-being of the country as well. Both marry, both go hand in hand. Remember, we've come out of a pandemic. Well, as far as I'm concerned, that we're still in a bit of the pandemic. We're more in the endemic stages, according to the Prime Minister. But we've come out of 2 lockdowns in these 2 years. As I mentioned earlier, profitability and income streams have taken a very, very serious hit. So at this point in time, when you look at prices all over the world, Richie spoke about the prices of staples. Russia and Ukraine, they account for almost 20% of the world supply of corn. They account for over a quarter of the world supply of wheat. You could consider that not being in the global market anymore, because countries have significantly reduced, if not eliminated, their purchases from Russia altogether. You have wheat that is stuck in the ports of Ukraine, and it's not moving anywhere. So there's a reduction in the supply, obviously, a massive shortage in important staple commodities such as this. Wheat prices went up by 42% since February 16. There's now supply chaos with food prices, therefore, rising at the fastest pace it's ever risen in history. And it is essentially piling on a lot of inflationary pain, not just locally, but globally. And many consumers, many households are feeling it at the end of the day in their pockets. So we have to ask ourselves now, what is more important at this particular stage? I'm not saying not to get rid of the subsidy. I think we need to get rid of the subsidy, but the timing is very important. The timing is important, and when you do implement it at a reasonable pace, at a fairly slow pace, and take it in steps so that it would not serve as a drastic shock, a drastic unexpected shock to the local economy in particular. I would have thought that next year we would have been in a better position to do this, because next year we would have enjoyed more of the fruits of the higher energy prices, the higher revenues coming in from the energy sector, and we would have been in a better position to accurately gauge then the financial stress, the financial performance of the private sector, and how well households are doing at the same time.
Well, this question goes for both Mr. Sukai and Dr. Arjun. The Minister of Finance last week indicated that the economy grew by 5.5 billion in the third quarter of last year. We're still awaiting to get more information in relation to the last quarter of 2021. He's even indicated that the debt to GDP ratio, should things continue the way they are, could decrease to as far as 75%. It's roughly at 89% right now. Some economists estimate it to be higher, but he's stating that it can drop as far as below 75%, and that is good news. But as you have mentioned, the ongoing cost, it seems to me as a citizen and as a journalist that the government has focused mostly on managing the economics of the country from a macroeconomic perspective. They haven't really focused much on managing the entire situation. For example, the cost of rising the rising cost of food and other avenues that have affected and is making it more difficult for citizens to control their own pockets. With that, I'll start off with you, Mr. Sukai. Do you think that the government has done anything substantial or meaningful to help alleviate the situation, or at least to control the situation, to make things easier? Or do you think that we're looking at probably things that have been touted for quite a bit of time now in relation to the removal of the fuel subsidy without being time conscious or time sensitive to the situations that citizens are facing?
So usually the pandemic is one of the major reasons why everyone is feeling out, right? You have where restaurants, bars, the entertainment sector have taken the chunk of the hit during this time, right? Many restaurants and even bar owners have, within even the central region, I can tell you, right, have either pivoted their business model into something different. Usually the restaurants or the license are tied to the property to where the bar owners have, and they've transferred. There's new people running the bar who want to decide to get into that business at a time like this. However, if you're asking whether or not the government has put initiative forward to try and help. I'm not saying no. They have given the banks the ability to have the interest-free loan that is secured by government bonds, fully secured by government bonds. But, the other question, and Dr. Arjun will even allude to this afterwards, is how many of these companies were able to access that, and even the bureaucracy behind accessing those loans, whether or not, it made sense to some of these companies. I will tell you for a fact, some of these small to micro enterprises within our region didn't find it attractive at all. So they just opted out from accessing these loans or even these government grants. At the end of the day, it wasn't to say a handout given to anybody or a stimulus check that was deposited into people's account so that they could at least keep the economy moving. The economy moved on its own. The private sector did what they had to do to be able to keep us afloat right now, right? And I will say, if you look at the grand scheme of things, how things are panning out right now, yes, we are now reopening. Yes, we are being able, like, if you look at halls, gathering conference halls, even restaurants operating at 100% capacity. Now is the time for them to start recovering some of that lost revenue they have suffered over the past couple of years. So to compound that now with even if it's $1 or 50 cents, it is actually additional cost to your business. So the cost of business is going up, the cost of living is going up. Who's buffering that cost? And then you have minimum wage. It has been adjusted, I think, in 2019 to the minimum wage, I believe, was adjusted in 2019. I read that recently. And, if you look at it, a lot of people are still out of pocket. As Dr. Arjun even alluded before, you have a mass amount of population where their spending power has been cut. So, you don't have that economic activity turning as fast as enough. So I think that, waiting a bit until, let's say, next year would have been ideal, because then you'd have had an economy that basically had time to recover before introducing any sort of additional hardship, that is. Because when you have the price increases here now with fuel, obviously utility prices are going to go up, and we are going to see that happen very soon. And that is another additional cost.
Dr. Arjun.
Well, what we also have to remember is that even though the minimum wage level would have increased a few years ago, salary increases, especially in the public service, has not increased for quite some time. If memory serves me correct, it was back in 2013, 2014 was the last time they would have gotten any sort of an increase in their wages, and especially those working in the public service.
Yes.
So that is another element with the increase, the further increase now in the cost of living. Remember, the cost of living was going up well since 2021. Workers, both in the private and the public sector, are going to start to clamor for higher wages. That is inevitable. We're going to start seeing that very, very soon. How the state manages it is we're going to have to wait to see. But not only that, remember is that over time, when persons really are struggling to put an adequate amount of foods in their shopping, food items in their shopping basket, then it's going to place a further stress on certain types of expenditure then, like, for example, the food support program, the food card program then. There's a possibility that the state might end up having to spend more in that food card program because that is a program that tends to help a bit of the vulnerable segments in society be able to afford to put food on their table. Now that is going to be more expensive. Don't be surprised if you find that the budgetary allocation for that particular program is going to become higher in the next fiscal year. And not only that, you remember there's things like these senior citizens grant, this so-called old age pension that the state tends to provide. The cost of living, because it has gone up, many of them and they would need to get some more money with respect to their pensions. So is this another avenue that the state, I hope they're going to be generous enough to be able to bump up this particular grant that they provide on a monthly basis to the senior citizens, increase the senior citizens grant as well. There may be some pressure on the state to improve or to increase the amount of monies that they put in these grants altogether. Now, yes, profitability has taken a serious hit, and indeed so. There are many other avenues like household incomes as well that have taken a serious hit as well. There's also another in my view, another heinous possibility that because profitabilities have taken a serious hit, you may find the odd companies and the odd small companies in particular, if they were motivated to start paying their fair share of taxes very recently because of the stressing coming from the government that look, we need these taxes to be able to provide for you in turn. Now, because it's become so much more costly to do business, it's become so much more costly to import, and it's also still very problematic for them to access foreign exchange. Is that going to serve as a deterrent for them to start paying their fair share of taxes at the same time? There's one thing that the state has been called upon several times to do in similar fashion to Guyana and more recently Barbados, is to allow, and this is a way that will allow for certain cost savings when you're importing, temporarily allow an adjustment to the cost insurance and freight value when the private sector are importing goods from abroad. Mm-hmm. Remember, the cost of shipping in certain regions like Asia, for example, went up by over 500%. If they were to amend the legislation in Parliament, where they go back to using, at least when you declare your CIF value, if they were to go back to using previous rates in that particular declaration, or even allow a discount, like let's say a 50% discount on that in CIF value, then they're going to end up paying a reduced amount of duties and a reduced amount of VAT. They're not going to escape paying these high shipping costs. Of course not. The state can't subsidize that. But if they were to give them a blind, so to speak, and allow them legally to adjust the CIF value so that it reduces the level of duties and VAT that they have to pay relative to what they're paying at this point in time, this could actually help to give them some breathing room, at least temporarily, until they get back on their feet. That is another way that they could have helped the citizenry since last year when prices started to go up so exorbitantly. I mean, yes, you have to give kudos to them. They did remove VAT on many items, but was that adequate? And in my view, the answer is no.
Well, Dr. Arjun, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Also to the President of the Shogunas Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Mr. Richie Sukai. We appreciate your views and your thoughts. And the only thing I can say at this point is we can only see the true effects as it's implemented next week, Tuesday. And we expect to see certain things taking place. Already, many areas, many sectors within Trinbago have hinted that they will have to increase their prices. So a lot is taking place, and I know this will not be the last time that you gentlemen will be on the program. So thank you very much for your time, and we wish you all the very best and a very happy Easter.
Same to you and your family.
Thank you very much. Folks, here on Talking Point, we take a break now, and when we return, we continue the conversations this morning where we will welcome our second guest. Stay tuned.
We dare you to dream, to see beyond the struggle. to envision the possibilities, to live life with unlimited vision. Ferrera Optical supports you with complete eyewear starting at only $795. Let's make those dreams a reality. So book your visit via 227-7000, WhatsApp message 278-2878, or at FerreraOptical.com today. We dare you to keep going. Ferrera Optical says, don't limit your vision.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
If you live with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19 and has to self-isolate at home, take care of them from a distance and reduce their movement around the house. Give them space, a designated space, and open those windows. If you have to be in contact, mask up, both of you. If you work, stay home from work and don't go out. Not even to the grocery or pharmacy. And remember, no visitors allowed. Limit the contact to limit the spread.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Gift giving during a lockdown can still be hassle-free with a gift from FanZone with delivery options available nationwide. Visit and browse our Facebook and Instagram pages for all your official licensed merchandise and apparel and have it delivered to your door. Find us on Facebook and Instagram. FanZone, we've got you covered.
On the next episode of We Comedy Jam.
Searching bags, they're looking all over for this thing all over. But I know there was searching in vain because the girl that took my virginity left early now. The man stepped forward when I watch as a man in a T&Tech uniform. Man walk up to my candle, watch me in my face, say lights out mean lights out, and blow out my candle. I like to think like T&Tech have a blow out candle department.
We Comedy Jam, Mondays at 8 p.m. only on WESN Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. only on WESN Content Capital.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
we're trying to understand or get a better understanding of Trinidad and Tobago's diplomatic position, and that is often a bit difficult because of our relationship with CARICOM as well. So this morning, to give us a better understanding and to share with us where we lie in terms of the world, especially in relation to the Russian-Ukrainian war, is the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, who's with us via Zoom, Dr. Amory Brown. Good morning, Senator, and welcome to the program.
Good morning. It is good to be here once again. Good morning to you and to all of your viewers.
Well, Minister Brown, I'd like to start the conversation in relation to Trinidad and Tobago's position on the Russian-Ukrainian war. You stated on February 24th that you've instructed the overseas missions to use all available diplomatic channels and forward to condemn the outbreak of violence on Ukraine, to reaffirm our commitment to the territorial integrity of sovereign states, and to call for an immediate cessation of hostilities with reversion to dialogue and diplomacy as the only acceptable solution to the crisis. And 18 days ago, you held a meeting with various diplomats in relation to ensuring and assuring Trinidad and Tobago's strong support for the United Nations General Assembly. There was a bit of confusion a couple days ago in relation to our voting to suspend Russia from the Human Rights Council of the United Nations. We abstained from that vote. Could you just give us a better understanding as to exactly why Trinidad and Tobago made the decision to abstain from the vote, especially as you've indicated that you'd like to reaffirm our position of the United Nations in keeping with most countries throughout the world?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I don't think there's any confusion at all. The position of Trinidad and Tobago is crystal clear as a sovereign nation. And anyone who sits in the chair that I have the honor to serve from must take his or her responsibility very seriously. And the ministry itself has a very serious position as the interface between the government and the people of Trinidad and Tobago and our international partners, agencies, and multilateral fora. Now, our position on the Russian invasion of Ukraine is crystal clear. You've accurately described my instruction to all our overseas missions, and those instructions have been carried out to the letter. Consistently at the United Nations General Assembly and at the Organization of American States and at CELAC and in other capitals, Trinidad and Tobago has reaffirmed and underscored our opposition to this war, our view that the war is in violation of international law, and our position that a ceasefire is an immediate necessity. That's a position on which we do not compromise. I would want to inform you as well that Trinidad and Tobago not only voted for, but co-sponsored two very significant resolutions on the Russian invasion. The first was on March the 2nd, and the second UN resolution that we co-sponsored was on the 24th of March, again with strong language with respect to the humanitarian situation. And that one called for particular attention to the plight of non-Europeans and non-Ukrainian citizens who, as you know, have been having challenges. So Trinidad and Tobago is crystal clear. In forming these positions, it involves a series of consultations internally within the government, with the Prime Minister, with our leading diplomat within the Foreign Service, also with our overseas missions, our diplomats at the UN, also with our peers within CARICOM. And I think that's maybe the crux of your question. Now, a separate vote arose with respect to the Russian seat at the Human Rights Council. Now, a vote on a resolution should not be taken just based on the headline, but it also involves the language of the resolution. And I think certainly for 50% of the member states of CARICOM and for a number of larger states around the world, the language of that particular latest resolution was not sufficient to attract an affirmative vote. In Trinidad and Tobago's position, it didn't attract a negative vote either. And again, we issued a statement subsequently indicating that the ICC prosecutor is currently examining the very allegations referenced in that resolution, and that upon submission of his report, given those findings, we would be in a position to make a definitive to cast a definitive vote on such a resolution. In advance of that report, we view such a vote as premature. History would show that the resolution carried, so now that is a moot point. I need to tell you that there's a resolution this week at the Organization of American States where the resolution seeks to remove Russia from its status as an observer to the OAS. And again, Trinidad and Tobago is not just reacting to the headline, but consulting with our fellow CARICOM member states, consulting with our fellow OAS members, and with our diplomats in capitals around the world. And I assure you, we will form a position and develop a response consistent with our principles, consistent with our record on this issue, and other issues related to international law, and we will represent the people of Trinidad and Tobago firmly, robustly, and in a very principled position, as we always have.
Well, Minister, with this situation, normally topics such as diplomacy is not something that the average citizen is aware about, all of the different variables, all of the different stakes. Now, we do know that Russia does have some ties to certain Latin American states. We ourselves in Trinidad and Tobago, that is not as clear. It's always seen as, well, our main two powers vying for our attention might be the United States and China, who are not directly involved in the situation at this time. So I do have to ask, is Trinidad's position more based off of principle with regards to the procedures and processes and business of the United Nations, or is Trinidad also consulting and basing some of its decisions off of perhaps a consensus from CARICOM? Perhaps some of our neighbors have interests that we do have to consider, or do we have interests with regards to trade interests in any matter beyond just being a participant in global trade? Do we have any direct interest with Russia that we might not be aware of?
That is an excellent question. Trinidad and Tobago, with respect to our position at the multilateral fora, forms its positions based on our principles, based on our foreign policy. In particular matters, we may have a record of precedent to go upon, but also within the Treaty of Chaguaramas, CARICOM member states, as far as possible, attempt to form consensus on key matters of foreign policy. And that certainly applied to the prior 2 UN resolutions that I referred to. It even applied to the Human Rights Council resolution, where there was dialogue at the level of the heads of government of CARICOM, including our Prime Minister, and there was consistent, frequent dialogue at the level of foreign ministers, right up to the morning of that vote last week. And as you can see, 7 countries within the region supported, and 7 countries abstained. Those that abstained were Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, Guyana, Suriname, Belize, St. Kitts, Nevis. It was 7 in all. So, yes, the interests, the trade interests, etc., of Trinidad and Tobago always form part of the list of factors that would be considered. But in this case, our position is crystal clear, and it is based on a much deeper interest, the interest of survival of small states like our own. If sovereign borders are not respected in the way that Ukraine's borders have been disrespected, if international law can be violated as flagrantly as has occurred, and yes, there have been past examples of this, but in our view, this is the time to draw a line in the sand. And I can assure you that future aggressions by maybe other countries will have to be judged by similar standards. So this is an opportunity, this is an investment, in our view, in the future of world peace. So with respect to the role of CARICOM, as I said, always we attempt to form consensus. In some cases, especially when the timelines are as narrow as they have been recently, that has been a challenge. And then there are certain CARICOM member states that may have a slightly different disposition. With respect to alignment with foreign powers, I think it was one of our CARICOM founding fathers, the former Prime Minister of Barbados, Errol Barrow, who said it best: as small states, we must be friends of all, but satellites of none. And it should never be the case that any large country can assume the vote of Trinidad and Tobago or presume the vote of Trinidad and Tobago. The position must be based on merit, not necessarily those other factors. So I appreciate the question, but Trinidad and Tobago, I can tell you this week at the OAS and at every other opportunity, will form positions and will express our views based on principle and based on our clear expression of concern for the plight of Ukrainians, for the sovereignty of Ukraine, and for the consistent application of international law.
Dr. Brown, as we were speaking about CARICOM and consensus, because discussions and dialogue is one thing, consensus is another. A nation's own foreign policy, when it comes to discussions amongst CARICOM member states, it will be difficult in terms of foreign policy to find consensus. And there are many reasons, but would you agree that more so it is because of an individual's nation's own foreign policy that may actually cause difficulties in finding an agreement amongst the collective body that is CARICOM?
Yes, that's the gospel truth. And these are implications not confined to our own region. We see it in the African Union, where there's an African parliament, and they're much further advanced in terms of their regional organs. These complications arise. They arise in Europe as well. They arise within the Latin American system, within CELAC. That doesn't preclude the imperative of common analysis, of sharing information, of sharing perspectives, because even in the process of doing so, it helps crystallize our own sovereign position. So we draw great strength from our interactions with our regional neighbors, with fellow members of CARICOM, and even if at the end of the day, our positions do not emerge as identical, we all benefit from this sharing. And that applies in the challenges with respect to these horrific developments in Europe, in Ukraine, and on other positions that we must form. There are other challenges just on the horizon, some already being discussed and considered within CARICOM. And once again, that attempt to seek consensus is built into our DNA. And at the end of the day, there's respect for our individual sovereign positions on a number of matters. But bear in mind, there's a challenge with forming consensus, but it's not impossible. And on many fronts, on many resolutions, on many statements, on many declarations, on many candidatures, CARICOM has emerged unanimous. And so let's not be distracted by the exceptions, but also recognize that within our family of nations in the region, very often we are able to find full consensus and at times unanimity.
Well, Minister Brown, I do have to ask, given that the conflict has caused a certain amount of disruption in trade, world trade, and the world's food supply, then on top of that, some would argue that the sanctions leveled against Russia has caused further disruptions. All of these things are affecting countries such as ours, and even countries in worse economic positions as ours, very negatively after coming out of the damage from the pandemic and lockdowns. I do have to ask, is there any sort of pressure for smaller nations to band together to help the larger nations put more in place diplomatically to try to see an end? Because the larger nations might be able to hold out a little bit longer. And then there's also the fact that the military option might not be something anybody wants to see. So is there more pressure for nations like ours to maybe try to work with others in our situation to see what could be done in the UN to bring this somehow to a resolution?
Very important question. Trinidad and Tobago does not see a military solution to this war as desirable or likely or imminent. Clearly, this is a long, drawn-out campaign which has horrific humanitarian consequences in Ukraine and also right across the world. As small countries, we within CARICOM have recognized that we are particularly vulnerable. But the world, the globe is vulnerable, and we are not the only developing countries. That has been part of the impetus for us to take the positions that we've taken, to form part of the global community that has condemned this invasion consistently and clearly, without reservation, that has called for a ceasefire and withdrawal of military assets, Russian military assets, from Ukraine, and for respect for the international borders of Ukraine. But you referenced the issue of sanctions and the prospect of pressure being brought to bear. The main pressure that we feel is the pressure of responsibility. Bear in mind that our vote is equal to the vote of Russia or any large country on this planet. That's the founding reality of the United Nations. So though we are small, our voice is important, and how we exercise that voice responsibly is also important, and we always bear this in mind. But yes, we see the implications. I've said to my colleagues, if this war ends today, may not, if it ends today, we will feel the implications, the negative implications of this conflict for a long time to come, far less for if it continues for maybe months through 2022. So last week I met with the ambassador of Turkey. And one of the things I told her, I said, Your Excellency, the government and the people of Trinidad and Tobago congratulate your government and your nation for the role it is serving as a mediator in this crisis. As I said, we don't see a military end or a loser or a winner. So this has to end diplomatically. We don't have a choice. And some of the measures other countries have put in place are designed to help create an environment in which that diplomatic solution would be more likely to succeed. Turkey has gone a step further and has offered meeting space, a neutral ground for the respective foreign ministers to meet, offering now for the respective presidents, which would be an important development to try to bring this to an end as soon as possible. Trinidad and Tobago, as we've seen in our national statements, have you seen in our co-sponsorship at the level of the General Assembly of two very important resolutions, is very much aligned with that philosophy of finding a diplomatic solution as soon as possible. And we've certainly continued to put our energy in that regard.
Senator, the Honourable Dr. Amy Brown, the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. Sir, I wish to thank you. I do very much understand the implications of terms used in relation to diplomatic conventions and diplomatic agreements, and how one word can actually mean the difference in relation to a vote. I think this morning you have certainly shared with us a lot of which we were not necessarily aware of before, but you've also given a better understanding in relation to our diplomatic position and our policy in relation to the Russian-Ukrainian war. Thank you very much, sir, and we wish you all the very best as you continue the work of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and a very happy Easter.
Thank you. Happy Easter to you and your viewers, and please continue your good work. I'd be happy to re-engage in the future for the type of analysis and dialogue that you've been able to foster this morning. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, sir. All the very best to you.
All the best. Good luck and everything.
Folks, WESN now breaks for news on the hour.
Seven is out. All day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
In this season, we talk more about health, wellness, and everything in between. I am so excited to share with you everything about health and wellness so that you can design the life that you've always dreamed of. Join me here on What's Up Doc.
What's Up Doc, Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
The continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by
political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we see you next time.
A reminder from WESN. We urge you to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19. Stay safe by taking some simple precautions. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Wear a mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose or mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay at home. If you have a fever, cough and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention. Following the above can help us all to help each other.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WESN. Well, this morning we had with us, as we started discussions, we focused, of course, on the increase in prices for transportation fuel. We had the University of the West Indies financial economist, Dr. Valmiki Arjun, as well as the president of the Shogunas Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Mr. Rishi Sukai. Following which, we were joined by the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, Senator the Honourable Dr. Amory Brown, to help us get a better understanding of Trinidad and Tobago's diplomacy and diplomatic position in relation to the Russian-Ukrainian war. Well, folks, we now give you the opportunity to join us on the program and have your thoughts heard, have your say. Please feel free to express your opinion while being respectful to others. The numbers are on your screen, but I'll call them for you. 623-9376, 622-9338. We do have a call on the line with us from Digger Martin. Good morning, caller.
Hi guys, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Monday in La La Land. If you remember what you all were talking about, just launching things on a Friday, the Serial Line president in the US used to do that, and this government does the same thing. But on the diversification topic, I remembered a piece today that I read once where an economist said people respond to incentives and the rest is commentary. Well, we know the meaning of old talk, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm sick of diversification and innovation. And way back in the 70s, when things were good, no one cared. In the 80s, when they were bad, they still didn't care. But the paradox is diversification happens when an economy is in a slump. And 5 budgets ago in 2017, the Prime Minister listed the requisite sectors. So, my word is the D word. Sean's word that he's sick of is tourism. Sean, the intended sectors from 2017 were tourism, yachting, the arts, agriculture, business process outsourcing, which meant making Trinidad and Tobago a preferred location for BPO, because, they love acronyms, an international financial center offering a broader range of services, serving as a financial gateway to Latin America and the Caribbean. Well, I don't know how that's going for us, because even at the last summit, the Prime Minister, he was looking so subdued when he said the word, because he's always wondering, which is why he wears those socks. But on a serious note, he should wear them, and everyone should, for this month of April, actually, because it is National Autism Awareness Month. The day was last Saturday, which was the 2nd. So we should all be wearing puzzle pieces socks. Thanks. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you very much, caller.
Yes, tourism is definitely a way that gets on my nerves. If we had more time available to us, eventually I might have asked our first 2 guests with regards to the good uses of spending money with regards to the airport in Tobago, which I still find very questionable. Questionable decision.
I am also very pleased that you mentioned the yachting industry, because that, in my opinion, as well as others, they've expressed that it is opportunity for Tobago to expand in a sector which other Caribbean islands benefit from, but most particularly during the hurricane season.
Yes.
We are away from the hurricane belt. We have the opportunity for foreigners to come and dock their yachts here in Tobago away from hurricane systems and stormy weathers. And I do not ever, I don't think we ever took that seriously or ever studied such an initiative in depth to say, listen, we can benefit from this.
Maybe we do need to be a bit more desperate before we get serious about things outside of oil and gas. We have a caller from Petty Valley.
Hi, good morning, caller, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Sean and Keith Keaton.
Good morning.
First, I just want to say it was very pleasing to see a government minister came on the program and actually explain himself. And I think, in my opinion, he's one of the more sober, competent minister. Having said that, on the subsidy of gas, this term we always use, starting to sicken me now, this term we always use of when is the right time. Even for property tax, we subsidize on gas over 40 years. Since the 1970s, the Eric Williams put that law in place. Right? This is a different time now where it have a war in Ukraine and we don't produce gas anymore. We're an importer. Do people understand still with the dollar we paying for gas and 50 cents that we still paying the cheapest in Jamaica, Barbados, Guyana, Grenada, and even the United States of America, what paying $9 and something per gallon, US. So this thing about when is the right time? When is the right time for property tax? We are doing local government to give the money for local government to do their own stuff for your roads and gas and garbage and stuff with the property tax. I would like people to tell me when is the right time. And second, what new political parties, Gary Griffith, PDP, UNC, have in their plan, if they was to run the country, what will they do about the subsidy of gas? Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much, caller. First of all, I do agree with you in relation to Senator the Honorable Dr. Amory Brown being one of the most sober ministers.
Yes.
He took the opportunity, he didn't shy away, and he explained himself very well. He's always been very much well-spoken, and I'm always pleased that he is the diplomat of diplomats that spearheads Trinidad and Tobago's foreign policy, and I'm pleased with that. In relation to oil and gas, I must correct you on one thing. In relation to the right time, that is always subjective. I think more so that we have now reopened and businesses are looking to rebuild. That is the argument against the increase, because already certain sectors had to increase prices before we even reopened, and that in itself, the purchasing power of the individual has now been compromised even further, and I think we have to bear that in mind. But just to correct you in relation to Barbados, cheaper fuel than Trinidad and Tobago, unfortunately, that is not true, because the dollar amount of VAT payable on petrol was reduced from 61 cents to 47 cents on diesel, as well as other gases, other gas such as premium and super in Barbados. And we have to remember that they trade in the EC currency, which again is more powerful than the TT dollar. So bear that in mind as well. It's actually cheaper in Barbados at this point.
Just to say, with regards to the fuel subsidy being partially removed, we do have to ask, however, will the usage that the government uses that money for, will it be better than the benefits of the fuel subsidy? That's the counterpoint to the question I asked earlier. But I agree with you with regards to other party plans. Other parties should give out their plans so that the public could know there's a viable alternative or that there isn't. We have a caller from Shogunas.
Yes, we do. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, Professor.
The right time is always now. Never put off for tomorrow what you can do today. As regards the gas subsidy, bear in mind that if you over-subsidize something, you get wastage. And that is the problem in Trinidad. I have said before that when gas prices were down, most sensible countries who subsidize gas remove their subsidies. On the Russian business, I find it very difficult to believe that Trinidad could support Russia in it. When Russia's strongest ally is our neighbor Venezuela, who is laying claim to Guyana land, which went to arbitration years ago, and Guyana, Venezuela lost the arbitration. Trinidad and Tobago had a moral obligation as a member of CARICOM to support Guyana. And lastly, on property tax. The problem with property tax, it was never a tax. I have explained this before. We had 3 property tax in Trinidad, and they was for the availability of certain services. Sewer service, water service, and local government service. And what has caused the problem, if we have changed this to a tax on the general public, and despite asking the question on numerous occasions to your colleague, whether any technical report was prepared on that, I have never gotten an answer. Any questions, gentlemen?
Have a good day, caller. Take care.
As usual.
Yes. We have another caller on the line with us from Digger Martin. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning,
Morning.
sir.
I just want to make a quick comment. I noticed last week the government issued a statement on the case of Carnival, where they said their revenue earned was $2.7 million.
Yes.
Well, to the public, a lot of people might think that is profit, but that is not profit, that is revenue they got back from $15 million spent.
Yes.
So which means a loss, $12-point-something million.
Caller, I'm very pleased that you called in to clarify that, because I immediately thought the same thing. Revenue does not equate to profit. Revenue is not profit. And you have to bear in mind the costs associated with it. So 2.7 million in revenue. And we spent, what, 15 million on a Taste of Carnival? At least that was the budget that was split amongst. It's unfortunately goes to show that it was a loss-making venture. Nevertheless, I believe that the government thought that by implementing such, it will be the start just to revive the sector in order to have a greater build-up towards next year. I assume that was their thinking, but I'm very happy that you've clarified for the viewers that revenue does not equate to profit.
That's right. I also want to make a point on Dr. Amy Brown. Excellent choice in any part of any government. Excellent gentleman. He was the representative for Digger Martin Central, which was he was a very good person. And I must say, that interview was excellent, and you handled yourself very good.
Thank you, sir.
I always admire you all for that sort of thing, both of you all.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. When it comes to these things.
Thank
but
you.
I wish you all a very happy Easter, a holy one, and very safe, and take care of yourselves.
The same to you, sir. All the very best for Easter. Always a pleasure hearing from you.
Just the mismanagement of Carnival, and I think, again, the private sector obviously is going to try to be profitable, and I don't think any private sector events were loss-making events even this year. Why is it? Why is it that we can't even come close to, I'm not even saying break even, close to break even? Because at 50 million expenditure, 2 million in revenue, at this point, what was the point?
Well, I don't think we ever expected to make a profit. And I don't think that was ever the expectation.
If it was just for Pan, cool. Because, okay, that at least that was an event that was patronized. But there were a lot of events that did not seem to be very well patronized, at least in Queen's Hall. When I was driving past, every afternoon, evening, and seeing performers on a stage and seeing a crowd that might have numbered less than the backstage crew.
Well, we shall get into that debate very shortly. Let's pause on that for now, because we do have a call on the line with us from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Gentlemen, morning.
Good morning. 3 days in a row.
I would like to endorse that caller from City Valley. There is never a right time to implement any sort of increase. But we are now an importer of net products, of finished products.
Yes.
Now, Keaton, I have to challenge that comment you made about gas prices being cheaper in Barbados. That is incorrect. They reduced their taxes. The Prime Minister reduced the taxes to give an ease to the population. But the gas price on Friday in Barbados was $4. Just over $4 a liter, Barbados dollars. Barbados dollars. On Friday, the price for gasoline in Grenada was equivalent to about $11 TT a liter.
Mm-hmm.
In St. Vincent, because these are things that I track. So we, although we are now an importer, even with those increases, we still sitting good. I could understand the arguments about double on increases because we have the pandemic, we have freight prices going up, but I still think it's moderate.
Well, caller, I would like to thank you for calling and correcting me. You are right. I am looking it up right now. I obviously viewed previous information before making that comment in relation to Bayesian prices in relation to their transportation fuel. So I appreciate you actually clarifying that for me. It's always helpful, actually, when we in this position, we may make a mistake. The viewer, the caller, is always willing to help us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, caller.
You're welcome, gentlemen.
Have a good day. I'd like to go back now to A Taste of Carnival and that initiative. And I heard the announcement in Parliament on Friday. And I was not surprised. I was not entirely surprised because I knew that simply we would not be able to make a profit from it at this particular point. I believe that the government was trying to stimulate the sector to build it up in order for not only the planning, but also to give an opportunity in order for us to expand for next year. I believe that was the entire thought behind it. It was always going to be a loss-making adventure. It was always going to be the case, but the government pushed ahead with it nonetheless. I'm not saying that I agree with it. I was against it because I firmly believe that those funds could have been allocated elsewhere and utilized elsewhere. But it went ahead. We are now seeing the results of that. But nevertheless, it was an opportunity, and hopefully we can see, because we've had 2 years in order to plan and to reinvigorate our thoughts and our thinking behind what's best practice in relation to Carnival, because I think it is time that Trinidad and Tobago makes money from Carnival. The private sector is one thing. The public, in terms of government expenses, is a completely different story, as pointed out by my host and colleague. And I firmly believe that with the years and the time that has gone by, and seeing that we have 1 more year until Carnival takes place, I can only hope that we've learned some lessons and hopefully we can make some money from Carnival next year. That would be very good news to go along with the news shared with us by the Minister of Finance in relation to Trinidad and Tobago's economy growing by 5.5 billion in the third quarter of last year.
623-9376, 622-9338. Call in now. We could take about 1 more call before we have to cut the phone lines. But with regards to what you said about letting it be profitable, I don't know if the government side of it will ever truly be profitable. I think at the very least they need to minimize the losses, because at the end of the day, losses to that extent implies that too much of what you were offering was not really being consumed by enough of the public to make it viable. That's like saying we're going to have a water treatment plant just for a village of 1 person. Well, what's the point of that?
I believe that the government needs to stop viewing Carnival as recurrent expenditure, but rather as an investment.
Yes.
I think that is what they need to look at it as. And I don't think that we do that. I think it's just when budget comes around, we say we spent so much on Carnival this year, let's do our economic calculations, the rate of inflation, plus the current rate of taxation within Trinidad and Tobago, add that all together, and okay, it's recurrent expenditure. Obviously, there's a lot more that goes into it, but you get my point. I think rather we should look at it as an investment of which we can gain returns. And whilst returns could be in the form of leisure and the enjoyment of the public and the citizens and those who patronize and participate, I believe financially as well, that is where we need to gain benefit.
You see, we do have, you could argue, 3 types of projects, right? We have good capital expenditure, bad capital expenditure of things that might be a waste of time. And then we have reoccurring expenditure, which seems to be at times, whether they're good, they could start off well-meaning, but over time, after numerous administrations and as circumstances change, they are not necessarily always adjusted to ensure that they are optimal with the change. And Carnival itself on one hand, you have to ask, okay, who is going to safeguard the traditions of Carnival if not the government, right? Because the profitability in it at least isn't there right now. So it's not easy to, and it's hard to expect the private sector to do it. So I understand that. However, the fact of the matter is I don't think we're necessarily doing a very effective job at that.
Well, I'd like to discuss...
And to make it profitable, that ties to tourism, and look at tourism.
I'd like to discuss with length in relation to preserving the traditions of Carnival, because that in itself is subjective. But we'll have to, again, pause on that, because we do have a caller with us from Santa Cruz. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Welcome back to the program.
Keep missing you guys. But I'd just like to add a couple of things. Whereas Carnival could be seen as, or the government's contribution is an investment. The government is investing in the tourism product, of which Carnival is one of our tourism products. And I think it's up to all those bodies, the Pan Trinbago, NCC, NCBA, that have supposed to learn how to make their product marketable and profitable. The government gives you the subsidy, and you are supposed to take that money and make your product profitable. And that is not what's being done. So that's one thing. And I'd also like to say I had called some time ago when, a couple of weeks ago, when the talk of what America does, America is now going to talk to Venezuela to see about getting, okay. The thing about America that we don't understand is that for America, it's business. Let's see what makes it work for all of us. It's not the personal thing, okay? You have what I need this for my people, I have to work with you, I figure out how to work with you. I don't need to like you, but I got to know how to work with you so I can get what I need done for the general. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Yes, very much so, caller. Thank you very much for your contribution. Very good hearing from you. And that is where we close the phone calls for this particular episode of Talking Point. I'd just like to expand on what the caller stated. First of all, very fair point in relation to the other bodies, the other stakeholders in Carnival as well. They too have a role to play in this. And I appreciate you raising that point.
Sometimes they just sit on the subsidy.
Exactly.
And depend on that to make it profitable.
But in relation to the United States and what they're doing now and their position, you're absolutely right. Spot on, in fact. And I believe, I firmly believe, what people do not understand as well is that is exactly what Trinidad and Tobago is practicing right now.
And you can't blame us for that.
No.
Well, at least I don't think so. Credit Suisse says Venezuela growth could hit as much as 20%. They've increased their expectations from, I believe it was 4%. They said, no, it's 4.5. They said, no, it's not a typo. 20% increase in GDP, I believe, just because of these circumstances. So
just very recently as well.
That was last week.
And I mean within the last couple of weeks, Tobago ratified its diplomatic position, its friendliness, as you'd like to put it, with Venezuela. Just a couple of weeks ago, we did that as well. So
just, I guess, a small public service announcement. If you haven't seen it or any reports on it, Kinder, the Ministry of Health, has advised there's a recall on Kinder chocolate products. So this Easter, be careful. It includes Kinder Happy Moments milk chocolate, crispy wafers assortments, milk chocolate treats baskets, Kinder Surprise, Kinder Mini Egg, and Kinder Shock Bond. So this Easter, please be advised, there's a Salmonella typharium. So there was a recall.
And, well, as pointed out, it's actually been linked to a number of Salmonella cases across Europe.
Yes.
And the factory has been forced to shut. I believe it was in Belgium, the factory was. But bear that in mind as well. You see,
Cadbury's is still good.
Kinder's Joy eggs as a little kid, you know?
Yeah, I think Cadbury's is still good.
I absolutely
I
love
hope so.
Cadbury's mini eggs. But anyway, folks, that's it for Talking Point this morning. Thank you very much to our guests for joining us and to all our callers for their contributions. We very much enjoy hearing from you and, of course, always expanding on the discussion. And once more, thank you very much to the caller from San Fernando for just correcting me on that one mistake that I made. We always appreciate that as well. Anyway, folks, that's it in your daily endeavors. Remember, though we have reopened fully, we are still in the midst of a pandemic, so please, best health practices. We can't stress that enough. Mr. Sean Michael Small, always having a pleasure alongside you, sitting alongside you to have these discussions.
Yes, and ironically, today is a day to be a good day. I got you.
Actually, no, you got it wrong, sir. Today is a good day to have a good day.
No, but it already is a good day because the big pothole that was featured on Madam Fix-It right down the road from our studio, that has been fixed. And when I say pothole, I mean the open sewer.
That wasn't a pothole, my friend. That was a crater.
Into the drain. Yeah.
It was so big that two barrels fit in the crater.
All right. So it's a good day. We saw a little bit of the POS Corporation at work, thankfully.
Anyway, folks, thank you very much once more. As I said, today's a good day to have a good day, and we'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.